So continuing with Atisha's advice, part 2, from where we left off on Tuesday. A little bit of fun to start us off. So this next aphorism says, friends, the things you desire give no more satisfaction than drinking seawater. Therefore, practice contentment. Now, we have Google. So what happens when you drink seawater? Human kidneys can only make urine that is less salty than salt water. Therefore, to get rid of all the excess salt taken in by drinking seawater, you have to urinate more water than you drank. Eventually, you die of dehydration as you become thirstier and thirstier. Now, is that a fitting analogy for samsara or what? Replace the word thirsty with desire, and seeking satisfaction from just sort of chasing desires in this world, which we've been doing for lifetimes and lifetimes. What a perfect analogy, like drinking seawater. Not a good thing. I actually read a book about some sailors. It was a true story. Some sailors who got lost at sea, and the story of, I mean, there was one survivor, and so he was able to tell the story when he came back, but there were 3 or 4 of them on this boat, and they got a little too far out and lost their way, and nobody found them, and 3 out of the 4 guys died of dehydration. It's a brutal way to go. Brutal way to go. And you lose your mind, literally. You start having delirious visions and whatnot, and they get very, very hostile, and literally you lose your mind. And they end up sort of jumping in the water and trying to take people with them, which is a really interesting thing. It almost reminds you of kind of hungry ghost kind of behavior. You're just kind of going through the levels of the mind until you can't be here anymore, and you die. So I thought that was great. Friends, the things you desire give no more satisfaction than drinking seawater. Therefore, practice contentment. Next, he says, all haughty, conceited, proud, and arrogant minds, avoid all haughty, conceited, proud, and arrogant minds, and remain peaceful and subdued. So all haughty, conceited, proud, and arrogant minds, we like to pray for all beings, which we say includes us. So I think we should kind of think of our own minds when we read haughty, conceited, proud, and arrogant minds. And so we can see probably plenty of these things there. I read somewhere that Gandhi, his stated goal was to be the lowest of all so he could serve everyone, right? So this is like the exact opposite of pride. Pride can be something that prevents us from learning Dharma, prevents us from learning from others. It's interesting that I think pride is the characteristic of the God realm. If I'm not mistaken. Jealousy is the jealous gods, and then the God realm is pride. They got it. Don't need any more from anybody else. They're good. Eons and eons and eons. Eventually, they end up back with us. That's the story. So, avoid all those things in your own mind. And then certainly, we're easily influenced. We're vulnerable, right? With our Dharma practice, with how people represent themselves, sometimes we can get caught up. So, wow, they seem to really have something going on. What am I missing, right? And we can kind of get drawn in. He says, avoid activities that are said to be meritorious, but which in fact are obstacles to Dharma. Can anyone think of activities that are said to be meritorious, but which could turn out to be an obstacle to Dharma practice? it's a trick question in a sense, and I had to really kind of think about this too. But one of the ways that this could happen is that, we're doing Dharma work, we're doing charity work, or some kind of good work, even just around our homes or around the Sangha. We're doing something we believe is good with a worldly mind. And a worldly mind is one that's concerned with our own self-interests and pretty much our own self-interest in this life, right? That's where the interest is. So worldly mind focused on getting recognition, perhaps, respect, credit. If I do this, they'll see me a certain way. So that's how otherwise meritorious deeds can become not meritorious deeds, where we're actually burning merit, doing what we think is a meritorious deed, waiting for the credit, or even just banking on the merit itself, the self-interested state of mind. State of mind, that is really, really, really rising up for me in just about every, jealousy, pride, all these are states of mind. States of mind. And this liberation we're going for is a state of mind that is probably already here for us. We just can't find our way to that state of mind. It's interesting to think that if we achieve that state of mind right now, I listened to podcasts from somebody called Jim Finley. He's a Christian. He was a former Christian monk. And he describes how, they might have a class, like a retreat, and there'd be a meditation session. And, various things would happen in meditation. You'd have certain experience or whatever. And then he's got a great sense of humor. And he says, and then you come out of it, you're still you. You go out to see what's for lunch, which is great. It's great for us to know that we're not going somewhere. We're just trying to refine the state of mind that we live in every day to that of a Buddha or, initially a Bodhisattva. That gives me a great deal of confidence. I don't know if it does you, but it gives me a great deal of confidence. I'm not trying to go somewhere. I'm trying to earn a trip to anywhere. Profit and respect are nooses of the Maras, so brush them aside like stones on the path. So in these next few here, you're gonna hear the eight worldly winds. I mean, this is kind of what profit and respect, nooses of the Maras. We can review the eight worldly winds if we want. Gain and loss, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. So in our worldly mind, in our ordinary mind, those are the states of mind that we kind of swing to and fro, these states of mind. If we're just beginning with Dharma, we kind of have a little bit of Dharma. We have another state of mind that's being introduced. We kind of like that. But by and large, we're probably just blown around by these states of mind until we get enough momentum, enough experience to sort of have more of what we want and not so much that. So again, profit and respect, nooses of the Maras. I mean, if I do this, I'll get that. This exchange kind of mentality that we have out of our self-interest, and will I be seen a certain way? So we may be acting in such a way that we're giving, but our generosity is just attracting more karma and generating more attachment. Now we're waiting for something. We're doing all this. Don't you understand what I've done? When is it going to be recognized? We're hanging out, we're waiting. It's an attachment.
Yeah. What comes to mind is that there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong in profit. It's just the way that you holds profit.
Mhm.
Like there's good fortune, and that which comes from a virtuous state, which might bring profit, but if
Mhm.
we're holding it in the way that you were describing as me or mine,
Yeah.
then that changes the equation, as you would say.
Mhm.
But it's in the mind state.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that worldly state of mind, being in with that worldly state of mind, that self-interested state of mind, which is the opposite of the mind that we're looking for, that is interested in the benefit of others. We're going to get to something a little later by Buddha Master that's going to make that very clear.
So,
Yeah.
so the other thing, I was just talking with a friend this morning, and she was saying that there's just so much happiness. I'm trying not to be happy about it. And I was saying, oh, be happy,
Mm.
be happy.
Mhm.
But just don't cling to it, grasp it, hold it, and be unhappy when it goes away.
Mhm.
But I think that, that regardless, so it is about the state of mind you hold it, regardless of what it is.
Mhm.
Because impermanence says it will go away.
Yeah. 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 If we're like, there was a, what was that store called that we had?
Good treasure.
Thrifty Treasures. You wanted to make profits from the store because that was the whole purpose of the store, was to benefit. Maybe there was some benefit to the shoppers, but also to benefit Heartwood, right? So, and from what I understand, when I heard Venerable talk about it, or any of you talk about it, your attitude when you were in the store was one of really forbearance and really trying to benefit the people that came in, that needed the goods, that needed the pricing that was available for those goods. Yeah. So we can have our cake and eat it too, but we just have to sort of be careful. Words of praise and fame serve only to beguile us. Therefore, blow them away as you would blow your nose. So praise and fame, I just, recognize how attachment generating these identity states are. When we really identify with that praise or fame builds up over time. So we've been at it a while. There's a huge amount of attachment that's going to be associated with, fame. We may not have been at it. We may just gain some notoriety, but, one attitude might be, a better attitude might be, rather than sort of feeling like I'm famous, would be, I'm so glad that what I'm doing is benefiting others, right? I try to say when someone says, "Oh, great job," I try to remember to say, rather than just thank you, which is thanking for the compliment, I'm glad it helped, or I'm glad whatever the thing is. Getting it off of just what I'm getting, by the comment or compliment or what have you. But habits need to form, right? So my knee jerk is, oh, thank you so much. And that's great. But since the happiness, pleasure, and friends you gather in this life last only for a moment, put them all behind you. So remember I said Tuesday, listen for things that cause you a little tension, that kind of shake you a little bit, that you go, oh no, those kinds of things. This might be one of those. But, let's say we'll put them all behind the first priority, right, of our great aspiration for liberation and the benefit of others over ourselves. So certain friends over time, we talked about this Tuesday, will certainly may fall away or may go away on their own because of how you're prioritizing your time and the activities in your life. And that's all just perfectly it's a practical matter. So it's not like we're getting rid of people and we're sort of, sequestering ourselves. If we're way over involved with people in the world and we feel like we're just being spread too thin and our energy is going out willy-nilly, then maybe we need to, make some effort to kind of sequester ourselves to some extent. But so this all comes down to these priorities. If we have this priority of, the practice and the bodhisattva path and the Brahma Viharas and development of bodhicitta and all that means, if that's our priority, then things naturally sort of orient themselves around that. But if we don't have that stability, it might be good to sort of limit, some of those outside activities while you get some momentum. Then he says, since future lives last for a very long time.
Wait, Joe, before you continue, can I just say something?
Sure.
I just wanted to say about friends. One helpful way that I've thought about that is that I just remember that they're with me for a short time. My friends and my family are with me in this life, but I will have to say goodbye, and I don't know when that'll be. So holding that, knowing that I can't seek my happiness in a relationship with them because it's fleeting, grasping them, knowing that I'm going to lose them is going to cause suffering. So preparing myself now, knowing that their presence in my life is temporary and treasuring it in that way. Treasuring it deeply, but knowing it's temporary has been very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments?
That was great.
Yeah. A lot of times when I say any other comments, it's what am I missing? So thank you. So since future lives last for a very long time, gather up riches to provide for the future. So this pertains to merit, right? That merit that we accumulate through our practice by doing things in the right frame of mind, having the right view about how we're walking out our life, we gain merit through that, and that goes towards our future. What do we really take out of this life? My car's not coming with me. Guitar's not coming with us. Our friends are not coming with us. They may be there when we go, but we go alone. So the only thing we really take with us is the fruit of our actions. And so, since future lives last a long time, make an investment in that. You'll have to depart, leaving everything behind, so don't be attached to anything. So what's worth investing in with the time we have? We're fortunate to have a wisdom path where we can kind of make a choice like that. A lot of people are just sort of seem to be guessing at the whole thing, and then arriving at the end and maybe regretting that they didn't do this or they didn't do that, or they didn't make amends here, or they feel bad about this, or they wish they had spent more time with their children, or whatever it is. We're fortunate that we have some wisdom teachings to follow to help us get oriented towards, yep, wasn't perfect, still not perfect. However, know what that looks like now, and aspire to it and doing the best I can. More and more so as we see the benefit of it, certainly. Generate compassion for lowly beings, and especially avoid despising or humiliating them. So there's that, if we're like Gandhi and we're the lowliest of the low, then we're all set. We can, no one can really be less than us. He's going to mention a little later the servant's mind. Everyone as a servant does. I don't know what the servants that we run into in hotels and things like that, they depict on television, in movies. I don't know what they say behind everybody's back, but certainly when they're in front of, who they're serving, it's the utmost respect and everyone is equal. Somebody walks in, they don't know who they are, it doesn't matter. They get the utmost treatment, just like, the owner of the house. So have that servant's mind. There's nobody that's lower than us. We are the lowliest of the low. It's just a handy mind state to have. Keeps us out of trouble, keeps that judging mind at bay. I only ran into that from this particular teaching. It's just useful. It's just so handy. It's the handy way to be. Go ahead.
It reminds me of this verse that was shared with me from the Bible. I think it's from Matthew. Wait, hold on. Oh, is this one? Is this one? Yeah, it's that one. Lowliest of the low reminds me of a verse that was shared with me this week about from the Bible about, if you're invited to a party, you sit in the place that is, you don't sit at the main spot at the table. You always sit in the back or in the corner or somewhere, because you never would want to sit in a position where someone who is invited or someone higher than you, that's their spot. And so it said basically, if you exalt yourself, you will be humbled. If you humble yourself, you'll be exalted. And it reminds me of the King of Prayers. We talk about the most exalted ones are the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So I'm starting to pair that in my mind. Exalted means being humbled, the lowliest of low.
Mm.
So thank you. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And was it Jesus that said, and the last shall be first? The view that we're developing makes life so much easier, doesn't it? We don't have to compete. We're already the lowliest of the low. We don't have to compete with anybody for anything. We're out of the game. These images are very handy to our minds, which have the habit of taking everything for themselves and chalking up our gains, at every turn. Have no hatred for enemies and no attachment for friends. And if we do, examine what attachment is driving this. What attachment or delusion, what error in our mind is driving this hatred or this attachment. How are we putting me and my needs in front of the benefit of all beings? So if our friends are strictly a benefit to us, we enjoy that they love us, then we get attached to what they give us. And this may be what he's talking about here. No hatred for enemies, no attachment for friends. Don't be jealous of others' good qualities, but out of admiration, adapt them yourself. I read somewhere, someone said, avoid, yes, but when we, you love that, right? Yes, but when we see a good quality in someone or they act in a certain way, we go, oh, I should be doing that. I'm the Dharma practitioner. How did they even, yes, but they have these flaws, right? And we remind ourselves. So don't be jealous of others, but adopt them yourself. Out of admiration, adopt them yourself. Don't look for faults in others, but look for faults in yourself and purge them like bad blood. This looking for faults in others, that's probably what I've been doing all my life. right? That's the habit. That's the overriding habit that I'm trying to overcome, is seeing faults in others. Now, you couple that with a critical, mind capable of being an engineer and studying the critical sort of, it's a slippery slope. Can lead to, very detrimental views. Look at what's happening in the world. Look at, some of the people even being prosecuted for January 6th. They went from somewhere to a mind that became so detrimental. They got involved in this thing, and now their whole family is potentially suffering now because, one, they may not be here for 3 years because maybe they have to go to prison, serve time, whatever it is. Following someone's lead to see fault in others or see fault in a situation, and then just following that and then adopting that mind for themselves. Real slippery slope, detrimental views and attachments, and we act out of those attachments. And eventually, when we're just walking around judging, eventually those judgments are going to come out in our speech, our actions, an argument. Well, you're just saying that because, and here was this judgment I made 6 months ago. And then, in my experience, depending on who you have in the argument with, that accusation becomes the focus of the whole conversation. It's no longer about your grievance. That's gone now. Now it's about that accusation and how dare you and how could you and all that. I'm not sure how we ever thought any of this served us, but we just kept acting it out. Try again, I guess. Here it is. Do not contemplate your own good qualities, but contemplate the good qualities of others, and respect everyone as a servant would. So that's that image, a useful image. The servant seems to see everyone equanimously, seemingly without bias. Contemplating our own good qualities can lead to pride and arrogance and other things. The truth is, we can't actually see faults in others that we don't know for ourselves. We can't, in this life, it seems like we can't recognize anything we don't already know. Recognize. This is something that was a huge eureka for me in my 20s and 30s, with the meditation practice and all that, and those studies. I can't see anything I don't have. And I started doing it. I remember I was dating this one girl, and I started sort of, anytime I was even just walking around, she lived an hour away, so she might not even be with me, but I might have been just thinking about her, and then thinking about some flaw or something and then check myself. Do I have that? It was a great, introspection, right? Right? What did they say? There's one, how does it go? If you point this way, there's one finger pointing back.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another line of thinking that says, we're living out karma in this life. And so everyone and everything we encounter, and karma is generated by our own mind, right? So this mind stream we're a part of, all this is generated by this mind stream. And so all we're seeing out here is our own mind. And that's definitely true when it comes to faults. I mean, you cannot recognize, you see someone's behavior a certain way and you go, I know what that is. They got this. Well, the reason I can see it is because I have. And we know now from our own practice here that is definitely true. Venerable says she can sit up here, and as she's talking, she can see exactly where everybody's at because she's been through where everybody's at. And so, having, kind of set aside some of that for herself, she has the space and the capacity then to kind of see things without bias, just to see. But know that the reason she can see it is because she came through it. That's the value of experience. And that's the value that our experience in eventual hopeful mastery can be in the world. Just like sharing any skill. If I get really good at my job, then I end up teaching others. Makes sense. They're going to benefit from my experience. Give them a few shortcuts. Man, it took me all this time to learn this. I'm going to give you the shortcuts. If you want to learn them, then it's a matter of if they want to learn them. And I had, various experiences with that over the years. And our pride can keep us from wanting to learn. I want to learn that, but not from you. Venerable says that all the time, right? And I have that. I've had that. Yeah, I want to learn that, but not from you. Or I might want to learn that, but not now. Not from you. I want to do it on my own. So, all right. And then another image. Seeing all living beings as your father or mother, see all living beings as your father or mother and love them as if you were their child. As a child of parents, we, at some point in our lives, no matter how it turned out, we wanted for their happiness. I love watching funniest home videos, the shows of how the kids are and how they're so eager to please. And they see, once they learn what happiness is, they literally want to give it to everybody, it seems. Mommy, I did this for you. So if we could have that image, that attitude in the way we approach others, then again, it prevents that judging mind from getting us off track. See everyone as a father or mother and love them as if we were their child. I mean, up until a certain age, our parents are like gods in the ideal case. I'll say in the ideal case. We only learn differently once we start to have enough experience of the life that they led to see, oh. And then, I got to see, wow, my parents have been through something. They've really gone through it. My father lost his first wife when I was 2. He knew she was sick when he married her. So I should get to know these people. Maybe they have something to offer instead of walking through the house ignoring them because I don't want anybody telling me I shouldn't go out at 10 o'clock at night, whatever it is. Protecting my way of life. Well, that I can't use the car. So if I just go get in the car without even saying anything, then I'll just be able to have the car that night. It was all about having the car. You see how prioritization is? We prioritize things based upon what we want. We're just trying to learn here to prioritize the Dharma. Always keep a smiling face and a loving mind and speak truthfully without malice. So that comes with always wanting the best for others, always wanting the others to have the best experience in our presence, be willing to show it. But he says, and speak truthfully without malice, so don't put it on falsely. I've gone through a lot of my life. How do people need me to be right now? How do people need me to act? There's all the social protocols that we have. And a lot of it's false. I hate this guy, but he's my boss. Hey, Jim, but now I can have more of an attitude to realize Jim suffers a little bit. I really want him to have a good day. I'm going to give him a smile. It's going to be a genuine smile. That would work better for him and for me. It says if you talk too much with little meaning, you will make mistakes. Therefore, speak in moderation only when necessary. This is another slippery slope, right? Allowing our minds to sort of, run on with words, right? We start talking about something and our mind just sort of, leads us through and we're still talking the whole time. completely lost any connection to anything that's maybe mindful, create hindrances for ourselves and others. I mean, we can generate literal, lack of peace. We can get ourselves into trouble. That thing that compulsively comes up and says, well, I might have done that, but you, and all of a sudden, there's not going to be sleeping. Maybe there's, you're going to be disturbed. It's going to be a hindrance. And for us, who are trying to maintain such a stable equilibrium with and develop practice and momentum, we want to avoid those kind of hindrances. Nowadays, I mean, I'm 63. It doesn't take much to cause me to lose sleep. When you're younger, you can sleep through anything. You could, light the town on fire, go home and sleep, wake up the next day and deal with it, And it's possible that we're becoming more sensitive as well. So that what was just a minor disturbance that wouldn't have bothered us in the past becomes something much larger for us now. Energetically, we're that much more sensitive. So it stays with us. If you engage in many meaningless activities, your virtuous activities will degenerate. Therefore, stop activities that are not spiritual. And my experience of this is that there's only so much capacity in our minds. The word multitasking should be stricken from the vocabulary because there is no such thing. And we can really only ever do one thing at a time. And so with that, we're either going to be in a worldly, self-attached frame of mind, or we're going to be in a mind that's mindful of our cultivation. We can be doing worldly activities and either cultivating or not. It's not the activity that's the problem. It's the state of our mind that we bring to it. And then he says it's completely meaningless to put effort into activities that have no essence. I'm going to let Buddha Master speak to this one. This is on cutting off attachment to self. He says, now realize that's what we're doing, right? That's what this whole path is. Cutting off attachment to self, attachment to dharmas. So what do I mean by, so he says, Buddha Master, what do I mean by getting rid of your worldly attachment to self? This can be divided into two parts. You first let go of your attachment to self. When we're finished, we can go on. You must throw off your attachment to self and do things totally for living beings. That's our frame of mind. However, you do not become attached to doing things for living beings. What do I mean by this? You first let go of self or I. You think of the interests of living beings in all matters. You do that which is in the interest of the Buddha Dharma. You abstain from doing the slightest thing that is not in the interest of the Buddha Dharma. But you have no attachment. You abstain from doing such things and leave it at that. You're calm and composed. As long as it accords with the Buddha Dharma, you immediately do it. This is what is meant by cutting off worldly attachment to self. He says, if you constantly analyze Buddha Dharma matters according to your worldly mentality, that self-interested mind, what am I going to get out of this? Is this really worth it? You will not be able to cut off worldly attachment to self. And then he says, at this point, I want to tell you disciples that cutting off worldly attachment to self can very easily be done. You don't need to exert effort. You must truly resolve to learn Buddhism and become accomplished in the Dharma in this lifetime. your worldly attachment to self will then be cut off. So those are those 8 views from the Dharma of cultivation, right? Understanding impermanence and the suffering associated with it, penetrating it to the point where we're actually looking for a solution. And the solution is liberation. So we want to leave. And that's that renunciation. So our life gets reordered around that priority. And with that, we're walking the path of cutting off our attachment to self. And our priorities are leading the way. The teachings help to feed our priorities. We have the priority, but we might sort of reach a plateau and say, what's next? And so that's what Venerable's doing for us, is she's ahead of us. And so she has what's next right about the time I usually am looking for it. Your worldly attachment to self will then be cut off. That's because after you make such a resolution, that priority, after you have such a perspective and an aspiration, you will do everything according to the teachings. And I'll say, naturally. If you have that aspiration, if you set that priority, you will do everything according to the teachings. This is what you want. If I want to be a great tennis player, I go to clinics. I'm there to learn, and I'm going to do whatever they suggest because they've been there. They're there teaching because of that. So with our priority around the Dharma, the priority itself, it becoming a priority. And I could say in the last, 5 or 6 years, however long it's been, I think it's getting on 6 years. I've been saying 5 years for a long time. I think it's 6. But that, we can be sort of, in the beginning, I could, it was definitely kind of wishy-washy. This is interesting. It's interesting for my mind. I get something, a little something. And it wasn't until I ran into Dharma of cultivation, I remember sitting with Maya, and she said, so what made you choose the Bodhisattva path? I'm like, what? And, so we dabble. In the beginning, we dabble. But at some point, we more and more, as we chip away at our attachments, the things that keeps us dabbling, our attachments to sort of worldly things. And, and maybe not quite knowing how to be with them and be with the Dharma kind of at the same time. It's an acquired skill. We have to kind of learn whether or not something can be there and the Dharma can be there. Tennis can be there and the Dharma can be there, right? I like to serve really well. What that means is that the opponent can't return it. So that makes me happy. But as soon as I get attached to being able to sort of do that every time, they start going in the net. And for me, the overriding thing is I really, really, really want everybody that shows up to tennis clinic, to play tennis, I really want them to all really be peaceful and happy. And I can contribute to that. And so I can play tennis. It's a worldly activity, but not really. I make it a Dharma activity. It all depends on the state of mind I'm in it with. Golf. The Buddha Dharma helps me more and more with the frustration that golf can generate. I mean, has anybody ever tried to swing a golf club? So imagine that, you've been to the driving range for several weeks. You sort of work this out to some extent. You're going to have it around, and you do everything you need to set up and address the ball and set yourself up appropriately. All the things you've been working on, you have them. You're there. And you come back and you come into that swing, and the club goes dead into the ground. May touch the ball, may not, but if it does, it only goes 5 feet. You're trying to keep score. You're trying to have a better score than you did last time. There's nothing in the body. is racked by that. It's absolutely racked by that. You can get hurt doing that, your wrist, etc. Nothing more frustrating than golf, but better able to I actually did do it. In Hilton Head, I was out with my brother-in-law and we were playing around. And I have these are old behaviors that just come out for me. I have a move where, and I missed a bunch of shots in a row, and it was just really getting frustrating. And so this one time, he cracked up. And I developed this move over since my 30s or 40s, whenever I started trying to play golf. You have the swing, club ends up here. You can take that right around and slam it straight into the ground like you're swinging an axe. It's a beautiful move. I mean, it's so seamless, and you don't even get hurt doing it. So that came out a couple of times. But by and large, I really, really want my brother-in-law to be happy on the golf course. And if I'm expressing frustration, I've played with people that do nothing but express frustration. They have no business because their expectations are way beyond their capability. They're not spending 4 or 6 hours a day practicing. What do they expect? You know, but they're out there going, oh, throwing the clubs. And it's nerve-wracking to be around. It's not fun to be around. So we learn to manage ourselves for the benefit of others. See, it's done. So we can play golf and have fun. We find a way. Oh, I know. Well, I create the suffering, right? Whatever expectation I'm holding and attachment I have to all the work that I've done, right? There's a story there, and it's not working out in that one particular swing. Okay. So he says, if the things you desire do not come, it is due to karma created long ago. Therefore, keep a happy and relaxed mind. So for me, that means just stay with the practice. Stay with what I know to do. Have faith that this makes life easier, that it kind of generates good fortune. I'll buy that. And one of the things I'm realizing is, you know, I told the story on Tuesday of how, since I've given up alcohol, I'm less conflicted with how to spend my time. I didn't, you know, the last couple of years, I didn't drink much, but I still was attached to that drink at dinner time. And so, you know, it would be a Friday afternoon. It's, you know, a Friday. I got through the whole week. This habit of sort of, what am I going to do? Oh, let's go to dinner. And that means, that means have that drink. So it would be one of those things. And of course, you know, if you want to get a seat at the bar at the restaurant, you got to get there at a certain time. And so because it's first come, first serve, and if there's no seats, then you can't eat at that place and have your drink, you know. So there's this conflict. So I'm finding a lot of those tensions are gone now because, yeah, I have time to wash the car. I can probably still make it out to dinner. But the attachment isn't so great because the attachment was really to go have that drink or two, right? But now the attachment's not so great. So I can wash the car and take my time, do a really good job, even vacuum the inside, which usually is the thing that gets put aside, and still make it out to dinner. And even if I don't, so what? So I'm washing the car and I'm planning to go out to dinner, but the whole time I have this kind of flexible frame of mind. And then I get to a point where it's like 5:30, I hadn't had a shower yet. Food in the house, you know, forget it. So that contentment. But the reason that I can have contentment with the way things are and just go in the house and enjoy the rest of the evening is because less attachments. So it's as we begin to shed these attachments, contentment is naturally arises. We're naturally just more content because we're not pulled by so many things. We don't have so many conflicts. Good news.
Not to mention the amount of time that we get caught up in planning, worrying about, anticipating, then getting frustrated because we're not getting to that. Before you even get to that. Oh, I'm sorry. So I just see how consumed we get with these attachments and the time it takes to maneuver ourselves to make those attachments happen. Beyond even the moment that we're doing whatever we anticipated doing.
Yeah, it's 3:30. It's going to take me an hour and a half to wash the car. I need to take a shower before I go. That's going to put me to the restaurant late. I'll just go in, take my shower, head out. I won't wash the car, right? Because the priority is getting out. And this, I mean, we've all had careers, and we know the end of a hectic week, at the end of a week where we were asked to do something we weren't sure about, and we did it, we pulled it off, and it came off great. And that want to sort of go out and let loose, or, those are habits. And so that habit energy is still there. So we may have less attachments, but still there's a tendency to say, like this week, right? So I got through my Dharma talks, right? There's that feeling already cropping up that I'll, go and get myself some dinner tonight. It's okay, but just knowing that, I'm rewarding myself or not. So I'll have that intention, but it may or may not happen. May or may not happen. And that's okay. Contentment is more kind of the prevailing thing. I've always been able to occupy myself. I grew up with a sister that was 5 years older than me. She was my babysitter for as soon as she turned 11 or 12. I mean, that's how we did it in those days. And so I was kind of an only child, and valued my friends and friendships and things like that, but people weren't always around. So I was great at occupying myself, paint by numbers and all that stuff down in the basement. We had our little record player, and my sister and I would be down there, we'd play cards. I'm great at occupying myself. So, that's coming in real handy when, all right, I got the night to myself. What can I do? 2 weeks ago, my job, Sue was out for the afternoon, so it was a great time to do the floors. So I make it fun. Put on my favorite Jeff Beck concert, double CD, DVD, right? Put that on in the living room. Every now and then, stop and watch. Keep going. It took me 3 hours to do the floors. But I had a great time doing it, Content. Now, it wasn't like I'll only do the floors if I can do that. That was just my way of having a little fun while I was at it. But that comes from, growing up and knowing how to occupy yourself. And I find a lot of people just don't know how to occupy themselves. And that creates a lot of suffering for people. Constantly running around and don't know how to occupy themselves. Beware offending a holy being is worse than dying. Therefore, be honest and straightforward. So, one thought is, how do we even know who a holy being is, right? So we should always be honest and straightforward, because we really don't know who we're dealing with. I love that image of in the Indian lore they have a lot of stories. My old practice was Indian. They have a lot of stories about, the castle and all the sort of, all the people that want to be near the king, coming into the castle. And there's that lowly person, sweeping the courtyard. And come to find out, he's the guru, he's the master, he's liberated, he's out there, and he's the lowliest of the low, and he's fine with that. And if you ask him something worthwhile, he'll tell you. Other than that, he has no need for you to know that he's anybody, the lowliest of the low. So anybody can be a holy being. So we should just always be honest and straightforward. That's our practice. Since all happiness and suffering in this life arise from previous actions, do not blame others. Take responsibility. Sem Rinpoche has a few videos on this topic.
Responsibility's been coming up a lot. Like, don't complain and take responsibility.
Stop blaming others. Yeah.
That's been useful. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, it's your karma.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, stop blaming others. All happiness comes from the blessings of your spiritual guide. Therefore, always repay his kindness. What's the best way to repay the kindness of our spiritual guide?
Liberate them.
So liberate them, live well for others, practice. Yeah. They go to a lot of effort to teach us. The least we could do is practice, right? Since you cannot tame the minds of others until you have tamed your own, begin by taming your own mind. Can we teach someone else to drive if we've never driven? So, our practice in our accomplishment, however that shows up, gives us credibility. And then people are more prone to listen to us if we have something to say or some advice. Since you will definitely have to, there's a lot of impermanence spread through all these aphorisms. He just keeps peppering back to this. Since you will definitely have to depart without the wealth you have accumulated, do not accumulate negativity for the sake of wealth. That's, that exchange mentality can get us into a little trouble. In Buddhism, one of the names for that might be wrong livelihood, right? We could literally have a livelihood that's, exploiting weaknesses of others and or their ignorance for our own gain. So never accumulate negativity for the sake of wealth. Man, we see so much of that in the world. Yeah, some great examples of that one that we can view anytime we want to turn on the television or look at our news feed or what have you. And it's been going on since humans have existed. So this human mind entered this planet, this world, this samsara, and with these propensities. And so this plays out in a myriad of ways, over and over and over and over again. Now you might recognize in these next the 6 perfections. Distracting enjoyments have no essence. Therefore, sincerely practice giving. And again, it's that state of mind. If we are enjoying for our own sake, we're burning merit. We're using the assets that we have in this life towards what we've been doing our whole life. But when we give, we earn merit. And like Venerable says, don't squander your life. So it's the equivalent of squandering if you're just chasing distracting enjoyments all the time and really wanting to distract. And I've lived an entire life of distraction. Pretty good at it. I told you I'm good at occupying myself. It involves distraction too. Don't squander your life. Always keep pure moral discipline, for it leads to beauty in this life and happiness hereafter. So we have the 6 perfections. Can anyone name them with a microphone? You can name one if you like.
Generosity,
Generosity,
virtue,
virtue,
patience,
patience,
effort,
effort,
concentration,
concentration,
wisdom.
wisdom. So he's literally going to hit each one of those in that order. Thank you. Yes. Always keep pure moral discipline, for it leads to beauty in this life and happiness hereafter. So that's our precepts, the 10 wholesome characteristics, right? Generate good karma to benefit us in this life, as well as in our indeterminate future. Since hatred is rife in these impure times, don the armor of patience. There it is, patience. Free from anger. Forbearance. Buddha Master talks a lot about forbearance. Forbearance is that sword against us, getting insulted or embarrassed, or, which are all kind of, how we view having this kind of self-identity that we keep protecting and defending. Forbearance is the antidote to all that. But Buddha Master, everything boils down to just a couple of things. Cut off self-attachment, and to do so, practice forbearance. But yeah, try not to identify with those insults, embarrassments, blame, or know that when we are, then there's something there for us to learn about ourselves, about our attachment, about something there to learn. I mean, this stuff can go pretty deep and can tie up for days. Talk about losing sleep and that kind of thing. I mean, this stuff can go pretty deep to where you can't even get it out of your mind. But I find that after some period of time, whether it's a day or a couple of days or whatever, that will lift. Time heals all. That obsession with it will lift. And then we can get back to our reason and our thinking and begin to see things as they actually are, see our part in what it is we think, is wrong. And then even see our way towards what's to be done, if anything, other than just try to handle it better next time. Sounds a little like Buddha Master, this one. You remain in samsara through the power of laziness. Therefore, ignite the fire of effort, of application. So there's that 4th one, effort. Now that we know the way, we could say that we remain in samsara through our laziness, right? I mean, so the longer we prolong this, it's our laziness possibly that's allowing us to prolong it. But over many lifetimes, we may have had opportunities to learn wisdom and have a different way of being, and may have just wanted to be where we were, or had too much pride to really take it up, or any of those things. So he says, ultimately, it's through the power of laziness. So that's that inertia that we're constantly trying to overcome with our practice, isn't it? Every morning there's a choice when I wake up. Do I lay there a little more? Do I look at the phone? look at the phone? Or do I just get up? Or do I think about how much sleep did I get? And is it time to get up? Should I get up? Can I get up? I start to imagine what it's going to be like to do my practice with the way my mind is, with the way my head feels. Like if I didn't get enough sleep, your head feels, it's kind of like a little painful in the front. Am I going to be able to do my practice anyway? So all of these reasonings are going on. But I'm learning because we take option A and option B sometimes. I'm learning now, must be also because maybe I'm 63, that if I take the second option, which is to just kind of stay there and maybe try to go back to sleep, that when I wake up, I feel horrible for, just really groggy. I never really wake up for most of the rest of the day. So that extra sleep didn't really benefit me. So I'm learning to just get up. Last night, I woke up at 4 a.m. to use the bathroom. I was probably asleep by 11:15, 11 o'clock. So let's call that 5 hours. Now I have to do this today, so I don't want to be completely, So I'm laying there trying to go back to sleep. It's not working. It's not working. And I know now when I'm going to be able to go back to sleep and when I'm not. So about 5:15, I just got up and said my practice is going to help me more than anything else, especially once I settle into the period of meditation. I know we used to say in the old days that an hour of meditation is worth 4 hours of sleep. You read about the sleepless saints. I mean, they're pretty much, they're done with sleep because they're just in a state that's rejuvenating them all the time. Since this life is wasted by indulging in distractions, now is the time to practice concentration. So, one of the things we learn as we're paying attention on this path is what constitutes a distraction, first of all, because our whole life, we didn't really think about distractions. We just went from one thing to the next, feeling like this is what I want to do now, and this is what I want to do now, and this is what I have to do now, or whatever. But as we start to become more mindful, we start to understand what a distraction really is and what the cost of it is, and how much effort we might have to undergo to overcome it with our Dharma practice. So we start to be a little more judicious about the distractions we take up, because we know that there's a price. Now, I knew this price back in my 20s as well, but I was in my 20s. We're all going out on the weekend, drink alcohol and all that. Lots of things. Going to happen. Great meditator all week long. I know that hangover on Saturday morning is not going to help my meditation, but I do it anyways. We're attached, right? Over time, I remember I used to smoke cigarettes. Talking about priorities. I used to smoke cigarettes, smoke pot. But then I got really into working out, kind of back to it because I had it earlier in my life as well. Got really into working out, probably my mid-20s by this time. And I found that my wind was not there. Even if I just had a few tokes off a joint that week, I could feel it. There was a limit that I would reach, and I know that was from that. And so I began to pare that stuff back, quit smoking. There was a reason to do it. You see how priority works. So the only thing these teachings are doing is giving us priority. They're telling us from where they are that this is the priority you have to be successful in a reasonable amount of time. You can take eons, you kind of already have. Here's another choice. But I'm just, because, we went through the Dharma cultivation again, and there's been so much focus on prioritization and what those teachings are, and thinking about the 8 right views and how that prioritizes things for us, and that, how the priority is literally the thing that drives us. So important, priorities. If I want to get to that, if I want to be in the front row of that concert, I'm going to organize my entire day to get there, even if I skip dinner. Priorities. We work with priorities all the time. These are just priorities that are going to help us be successful in the Buddha Dharma. being under the influence of wrong views, you do not realize the ultimate nature of things. So this is that wisdom one, right? Therefore, investigate correct meanings. So we have our steady practice regimen. I like to add some self-study. So the Lam Rim has been contributing to what I call self-study. Areas of the Dharma that either interest us or challenge us, and we look into them. As I'm reading, something like Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, all kinds of texts or references or terms might come up that I don't recognize. Sit there and look them up. It's my time. I might only get through a half page. I'm not in a race to finish this. I may never finish it. Doesn't really matter. There are little tidbits in there that I use to add to the Dharma practice that I sit and do every morning. That's the reason I'm looking at it. There's little ways to enhance your refuge practice, for instance. It's an understanding about how you could take it further. And so, they go so far with refuge practice. I don't know if you've ever seen this. They go so far with the visualization. We say, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We say those things. We understand what they mean. Visualization, this is a visualization practice. It can include a visualization practice that envisions all levels of beings in front of you. I'm not that good a visualizer, so I take a little bit of what they're referring to, and I sort of, I build a stage and I put the Buddha on it and Maitreya, and, I have more than I had before, but I get what they're getting to, right? That if we really have this, and then when I sit down to start the practice after having done my prostrations with that image, then when I sit down, the next thing that comes up is the mandala offering. I have the same image. I have that same, they're all there already, and I can use them again. So that's what I'm getting out of here. A little bit of the sort of the sense of the history and the tradition as well. This is useful for me, in my mind. So self-study really, really helps to fuel our interest and help keep this a priority. Especially when we reach those plateaus, we feel like nothing's happening. We used to call it getting dry in the yoga days. It was so dry. Meditation's just flat. Nothing's happening. Go on weeks, dry. Need an intensive, So we're finishing here. He's finishing. Friends, there is no happiness in this swamp of samsara. So move to the firm ground of liberation. We can rely on our practice to take us there. And we practice because we have somewhat of an understanding of the nature of suffering in samsara. It's becoming a more and more of a firm belief. So that second item in the 8 right views that Buddha Master talks about in the Dharma of cultivation, firm belief. I not only sort of think that makes sense, I firmly believe that there's another way. And I'm committed to the next step, which is where the renunciation comes from. That's the third one. I vow to leave. Now, we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be right here, like Jim Finley says. We'll go to another state, and then when we come back, we'll get up and see what's for lunch. I love that. Love the way he says that. Buddha Master had lunch. So he says, friends, there is no happiness in this swamp of samsara, so move to the firm ground of liberation. Meditate according to the advice of your spiritual guide and dry up the river of samsaric suffering. So it's fitting that we're moving now. Atisha has helped see us out of this current segment of our courses, Dharma of cultivation, and now supplemental practices that can help support our cultivation. And now the next thing will be more of a focus on meditation, and Venerable's going to lead us into that. So that's up next. So yes, we will meditate according to the advice of our spiritual guide, and that will help us dry up this river of samsara. You should consider all this well, because it's not just words from the mouth, but sincere advice from the heart. Sage advice from someone who's gone before. If you practice like this, you will delight me, and you will bring happiness to yourself and others. And then we get the obligatory, I, who am ignorant, request you take this advice to heart. And that's Atisha's advice for cultivators, for practitioners on the path. Anybody have any comment? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was
Oh.
trying to.
You were fidgeting. We don't call that a distraction yet. If you keep fiddling, though, we might. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I can take one up.
You attracted attention to yourself.
I was.
But we have a few minutes to go, so if anyone has anything to add, anything to offer, what did I miss? I'm learning too. Yeah, she asked me a question Tuesday. She's always get that Dharma of Cultivation book. Comes over with a question. We discovered the answer together, and now I have it. You know, really, really clear. What I just said, those first three things, she helped me to really kind of get clear. Probably thought I had it at one point, but the nature of her questioning had me go through it again, and it came that much clearer. So, thank you. This is how we help each other as a Sangha. Our own self-interest, our own interest and self-study brings us to one another, and then we all learn from one another. This is part of my Dharma practice. This Atisha's advice is part of the preliminary part of my Dharma practice. So, having done this for 2 days, I will benefit by, being able to better penetrate these things while I'm sitting with them each morning. Because we can get a little flat. This is, 3 pages of, right? And it's not the first thing that comes up. So there's been there's all these bullet points, things that we can sort of, so the more interest we can kind of take and see, then some of these things didn't quite sort of make sense, but, I'm on a schedule. I got to get through this Dharma. I like the meditation part. So, so we kind of say, well, I'll look that up. But I never did, but you forget, right? So we didn't do it. But now I have it. So I can actually sit with some of these now as a meditation, as a contemplation.
I do have something to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it strikes me that these last 4, 5 Dharma talks that we all have given here are saying the same thing, basically. And that is awareness and not staying in the fog. That eventually, the last time there was fog, I saw there was some clearing coming up. Eventually, I'm going to get there if I keep driving. If I keep driving. And so I think that awareness will allow what you just taught these last 2 classes, give us an opportunity to really digest them. And not just digest them, but to move through them and let them do the nourishment that they have.
Fatima, you have something to offer? Welcome.
Yes, I do. Hi. I have a short story. Yesterday I had to move the car because it was the street cleaning. And so when I went to the car, and it was about lunch, 11 a.m. here in Brooklyn. And I said, oh, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Whole Foods because they have Wi-Fi. They have a place where I could sit, and I had a meeting. So I said, I'm going to go there. And as soon as I thought about that, I said, they have hash brown. I'm going to have it there. And when I thought about that, my body felt it. I was salivating, and I was just noticing my body. And then I went, I got the car, I drove around and for an hour, and I said, I'm not going to go to Whole Foods, and because I don't have to do that. But I drove an hour around. I couldn't find a place. So I decided to go and to Whole Foods. And when I was driving there, that desire to have it was so strong. I felt through my body. And then there was this moment that I noticed everything, and I was thinking about everything that we are, studying, and the state of mind and all of that. And then I said, what is that? What's that? What's happening? And then I realized, well, but I love it. I just like it. And then I thought, I don't do that at home. It's not something that I do. I barely eat hash brown or potato, and I don't go out to have breakfast. And as soon as I thought about that and why I was doing it, I said, oh, I love it. And I don't have to self-indulge. I don't have to abuse it. I can probably have 3 pieces, and that would be okay. When I thought about that, I felt released. And indeed, I went there, I saw other things, and I put 3 little pieces, and I ate, and I was very happy. But the thing is that as soon as I thought I'm going to go to Whole Food, the first thing I thought was breakfast, and breakfast, hash brown. And it was like it was very good to notice and to inquire, and also to give permission for me to have something that I love, and know that I have control of how much I was going to get it. So I wanted to share that, because you keep talking about doing washing your car and having dinner and all that. I said, oh, I understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatima. That's wonderful. Anyone else? It's a wrap. Can someone offer merit?
May the benefit of our time together, the teachings that Joe has offered, be of benefit to all beings, to those we encounter, and those in need of food, shelter, and safe haven.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.